Hello, my name is Ryan Quirk, and today I want to talk to you about anxiety and how to cure it. Now, I say this as a psychology student, but I also say this because I used to really struggle with not just like a little bit of like social anxiety, but like intense panic attacks, feeling like I couldn't function throughout my day, like really bad anxiety. Anxiety that makes you feel lost at how you're going to get out of it and what it is you want to do. So, in order to get out of this, is a very short video because actually the way of getting out of anxiety and curing it is very simple. One is it starts with accepting the notion that anxiety can be cured. In the same way, if you went to a doctor with a broken arm, they'd put a cast on it, they'd do some rehab, and then your arm would be cured. In most cases, right? In most cases. In that same way, any and all mental afflictions like anxiety, depression, even things in more extreme cases like bipolar disorder, OCD, or PTSD, they are curable. But you just have to have a working definition for what they are. In fact, it's the very label that we give ourselves as I have anxiety, I am an anxious person, that prevent us from realizing that anxiety is in fact curable. So how do we then cure this mental affliction, this mental parasite of anxiety? How do we remove that tick from our minds? The first is to understand what anxiety is. So my definition for anxiety is when your mind and your body, when your mind and your nervous system are working against you instead of for you. So what happens is your mind and your nervous system produce thoughts and feelings. All right. So, you think certain thoughts throughout a day. The quality of your thoughts and what you're focusing on produces certain feelings, and vice versa. When your body's in a certain state of being, whether you're healthy or unhealthy, or your nervous system is feeling calm and relaxed, or it's in a state of fight or flight, that's going to change the quality of the thoughts you think. For example, if your nervous system is overly sensitive and you're in a state of fight or flight, the thoughts you think are immediately going to be negative because you're in a reactionary state. So you may notice without any conscious effort your mind just saying crazy things that are making you more anxious over and over because your body won't leave the state of fear. It won't leave the state of fight or flight. So understanding that that's what anxiety is, the cure for anxiety is then to create a nervous system and a mind that work for you instead of against you. So if anxiety, and also depression too, but in this video we're focusing on anxiety, is your mind and your nervous system working against you, happiness, or the cure to anxiety, peacefulness, inner peace, calmness, is your mind and your nervous system working for you. All right? Now let's talk about a few different ways that anxiety manifests and how we can begin to cure it. So for some people, it's not as much of a physiological thing. It's more of just a mental affliction. And this type of anxiety, you may feel it in emotions, but it's not as visceral in the body. It's just this kind of clouded state of overthinking. And the other kind of anxiety that's more extreme is when it starts to manifest through the body. Your body actually refuses to leave the state of fight or flight. You feel less hungry, you have less of an appetite because your body's just in this constant fight mode. The thoughts you're thinking are driving you crazy. You either have a lot of energy or no energy at all, and you're just not functioning very well. That's the more extreme form of anxiety, and we're going to talk about how to cure that as well, because the cures go together, because one is the kind of first stage, the other is the second and worst stage. But we'll talk about the first stage first. So the first stage, where anxiety is just kind of a mental affliction, where you're just overthinking, the cure is what I would say two things. And there's many practices for these two things, but here's the cure. The issue is your mind is overthinking. All right, that's the issue. How do you calm down that issue? Meditation. Now I want to explain a little bit about what meditation actually means in regards to that. So meditation does not mean that you have to sit for an hour a day, quiet, cross-legged, and just focus on your breath. That will help. If you do that for not an hour a day, but 15 minutes a day, twice a day, that will really help if you have a meditation practice. However, what meditation really is the state of being meditative. It's the state of being aware instead of being lost in thoughts. It's the state of feeling a little bit of distance from your thoughts. So what happens is anxiety is the state in which, imagine there's like a monkey right here and it's just screaming in your ear all the time. What practices of seated meditation allow you to do is that monkey may still be screaming. The thoughts are still going on, but it's now like 50 feet away from you. You have some distance, you have some peace. And just like when a toddler is throwing a tantrum, when that toddler or that monkey is far away from you and you just allow it to scream, but you keep kind of sinking back, you're just able to watch it unfold and relax inwardly, the mind starts to calm down. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the mind does not calm down when you tell it to calm down. Sometimes if you're having an episode of anxiety and you're overthinking a lot, you will tell your mind, like, just shut up, calm down, and that only makes things worse. That's not how you work with the mind. For example, if I tell you right now, don't think of a car, the first thing on your mind is a car, all right? But if I tell you, do think of a loved one, then you focus on a loved one, right? Your mind and your consciousness is like a spotlight. It's like a flashlight, and it focuses whatever you give it attention to, whether it's wanted or unwanted, all right? But the first step before you can focus more on what's wanted and rewire some of those neurological pathways so that they are more positive is you just have to create distance. You just have to calm down. Because the reason anxiety feels so overwhelming is not because anything bad is actually happening and not because it's permanent, but in the moment when the mind starts just chattering and it's right here, it's so overwhelming. You sometimes feel like you can't even just drive a car or go for a walk because it's so right in your face. So what I recommend is the practice of meditation twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. This is because at those times your brainwave state is slower, so you're able to be more calm, right? Midday, you can add meditation. That may really help. But right when you wake up, before the anxious thoughts really get rolling, right? Because anyone who has struggled with anxiety also notices that they typically feel the best in and around sleep, because it's in sleep where their mind gets a break. You know, the mind kind of just calms down, goes to rest. It's only in the waking state where the mind just starts firing and wiring again, and the anxiety skyrockets. So that is super helpful, a meditative practice. And what that meditative practice allows you to do is develop witnessing consciousness. So then, because of the muscle that you're strengthening in meditation, that ability to be the witness to your thoughts instead of getting lost in them, then throughout your day, you might be at a class, you might be at a job, you might be hanging with friends, and you notice the anxiety start to creep back up and it's kind of just clouding and fogging your mind. You're able to witness it. So you might just be walking, and instead of the thoughts being right here and you start to think more thoughts like, oh no, this is bad, you just watch it. And you kind of, just like clouds passing in the sky, you watch the anxious thoughts pass through and you don't get so tangled up in them. The key to healing anxiety really is like this. It's like when you have a scab, and now if someone says, how do you heal a scab? Do you poke at it more? Do you apply all this stuff to it? Do you have to do PT or anything like that? And you go, no, you just don't touch it. You just don't touch it. Anxiety is like the toddler part of your brain that wants attention. It feels worried. It feels scared. And sometimes it even says really crazy things. Like sometimes your anxious mind will say things like, what if I'm never lovable ever again? Or what if I'm this? Or what if I'm that? It always, I don't know if you notice this, it always starts with what if statements. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens, right? And it can even say crazier things. It can say things like, what if I don't exist? What if this is all fake? What if this, all of these crazy, wild thoughts. But if you notice, when you're in the state of anxiety, all you really want to do is feel at peace. And if you look back and you think about times in your life where you were at peace, you realize that the mind was calm. You realize that anxiety only arises as a result of these negative thoughts. Without the negative thoughts, there is no anxiety. That's because, and we'll talk about this more as I go, but negative emotions don't arise on their own. They don't. They arise as a result of negative beliefs, negative thoughts, negative perspectives, even if they're unconscious. That's why anxiety feels like it's out of your control, but it's not. And so that is a super helpful process, really, for anyone in life. Even if you're happy, twice a day meditation or even once a day in the morning meditation is super beneficial. But for those struggling with anxiety, it creates a sense of self-empowerment. Now it's not about, can I take this pill and cope with my anxiety? It's, you're going to the roots and you're pulling the anxiety up by the roots. Because anxiety can only continue if you're fueling it, if you're scared of it, if you're afraid of that feeling that arises within you, then the anxiety will continue. But if you can watch those crazy thoughts pass by and just relax and say, this feeling is uncomfortable, but it's just a feeling, and I'm going to sit back and practice relaxing, that will help you tremendously. In fact, that'll cure about 95% of your anxiety. Because again, if you've ever had a panic attack and then like after the panic attack, what happens is when you have a panic attack in the moment, the anxiety feels so real because of the fear that's arising, because of this that's arising, whatever it may be, it feels so real. And then maybe 20 minutes later, you kind of calm down again and you go, what was I worried about? Oh my God, it's so like, it's like when fog covers the sun. The sun is always shining bright and warm and happy, and it's just kind of shining all the time. And then all of a sudden, this fog comes over, and you can't see the sun's rays anymore, right? And that's like the nature of your very being, right? Your natural state, when your nervous system is healthy, when your brain and your mind are healthy, it's like the sun. It's like you just go about your day, and life is very simple. It's richly complex, but it's very simple. You see friends, you do the things that you love to do. Maybe you go to a job if that's you. Maybe you go to school. Maybe you travel. You do whatever, but life is just good. You're just kind of living in the moment and going about your day, and life is just fine. Life is just wonderful. And that's the natural state of your being. It's like each being is this little sun that's always radiating well-being, but sometimes that well-being gets covered up by anxiety or covered up by depression or covered up by this fog. But understand that you are not the fog. The sun always exists behind the fog, and that's what you're doing when you learn to become meditative. You're sinking into the part of your being that is always happy, that is always in a state of well-being, that is always in a state of wisdom and peace. And you're sinking into that part that's just watching the anxious thoughts go by, and you're watching the storm kind of pass before you while you continue to shine brightly. And what happens is, as you watch without touching, without getting, because again, if you want a scab to heal, you can't constantly pick at it. You have to just watch, you have to just relax. What happens is, over time, you won't know exactly the day, exactly the moment, exactly the hour, it will go away. And also, not only will it go away, it'll make your life, as the anxiety starts to leave you and starts to get cured, better already. Your life gets better immediately when you learn to relax in the face of anxiety, even if it's not cured yet. All right? And what that will do too is training yourself to relax and witness the scary thoughts instead of getting so tangled up in them is, over time, you will find increasing surges of happiness, increasing surges of inner peace. And again, it's like a muscle, you strengthen it. When you strengthen your ability not to itch a mosquito bite or scratch or poke at a scab, it goes away naturally. It goes away naturally. So that's the first step. Now let's talk about the form of anxiety where it manifests more physiologically in the body. Your body won't leave a state of fight or flight. It feels dreadful. Your mind is saying crazy things. Let's talk about that. So meditation is key for that as well. However, it can be really hard to meditate if you're feeling that anxious, to sit totally still, or even to just watch the thoughts if you're feeling that negative. And so this is basically what's happened in that scenario. This is what we might call trauma. And now this might be unconscious or subconscious, but what happens is when your body won't leave a state of fight or flight, there is trauma in the body that is preventing you from leaving a state. Your body believes it's still in the same scary and negative experiences that you were in whatever past experience you had, and therefore it refuses to leave that state. It feels like you always need to be on edge to fight off a threat or fight off danger. And so how do we cure this type of anxiety? Well, it's through the same means of relaxation. However, there's a few more practices that can really help to begin to move these stuck energies and retrain your nervous system to enter into a state of rest and digest, or a state of inner peace, through certain practices. So what I recommend for people who are struggling with this type of anxiety is do twice daily meditation, but before the meditation, especially in the morning, take a cold shower, a freezing cold shower, and then do breath work. Now, why are we doing this? We need to strengthen and retrain your nervous system's ability to handle a little bit of stress. What happens is when your nerves become so sensitized that any stimulus produces anxiety, one thought produces anxiety. Just thinking about someone produces anxiety. Just anything produces anxiety. You need to retrain the nervous system to calm down. And so two practices that really help with that rewire the physiology is cold showers induce a state of stress automatically. And you think that would be counterproductive, like, oh, if I'm already so stressed, why would I want to make myself more stressed? No, you're training the body that it's okay to be in stressful situations, and it has physiological effects whereby after a cold shower, because you've given it that short response to stress, the body naturally wants to then go into rest and digest after it's been exposed to stress. So after you start to warm up after the freezing cold shower, your body wants to go back into rest and digest naturally. After that, doing breathing practices and breath work, especially ones like the Wim Hof breathing method or breath of fire that really get you breathing quite a bit. Because what happens is that also induces a state of stress. Because when our body is in a state of stress, again, we breathe more like this. We breathe, right? So if you're doing, say, the Wim Hof breathing method, where the whole breath work is basically about a minute of hyperventilation and then these long breath holds, you're again inducing that state of stress. But what happens is when you consciously induce the state of stress, you not only handle it better, but you resensitize your nervous system and your nerves to the state of stress so that your body again learns how to shift back into rest and digest. And so that's why doing a cold shower and then breath work and then meditation is so helpful. And now if that sounds like a lot of work, it can be, but I promise you the price of freedom, of being totally free. Like imagine not a world where you're not coping with anxiety anymore, but you are free from anxiety. You are not experiencing anxiety. It's a distant memory. It feels like a nightmare. A long time ago you used to experience it. You can't even really remember it anymore. That is possible for you. The state of inner peace, the state of inner joy is natural for you. In fact, even in the most intense episodes of anxiety, there's an aspect of your being that is still resting in inner peace. And now you just have to access that and allow that to shine through more. And so by doing those things, you're in a sense tricking the physiology back into a state of rest and digest, where then you can go into meditation or a state of visualization, so a calming meditation of just watching the thoughts, or you can go into a state of visualization, begin to visualize positive things, positive scenarios flowing in your life, when your body and your nervous system are in a state where they're more easily able to be rewired and refired. All right. So basically, the principle of anxiety is this. We'll just retouch this one more time. Anxiety is when your mind and body work against you and not for you. The way to cure anxiety and to find inner peace is to get your mind and body working for you and not against you. Now that takes time, but just like a scab, if you don't pick at it, anxiety will go away and be cured. Now, if you're suffering with extreme anxiety and you're taking medication, that is fine. That is actually a wonderful beginning process to help this process of calming down. However, if you're having adverse reactions to medication or you don't like it, it's not helping you feel better, you don't need it. It can be a helpful tool, but it's a temporary tool to return you back to your natural state. And that can be the hardest thing to believe when we're stuck in states of anxiety. The hardest thing to believe is that our natural state really is joy and really is peace. However, anxiety doesn't just arise on its own. When we were little kids at the ages of 5 or 6 or whatever, for most of us, even if younger, 3, 4 years old, we were happy. Anxiety is not born into human beings. Now, you can have genetic predispositions to being a little more stressed. That's fine. But this state of constant anxiety is not born into human beings. Human beings' natural state is joy. That's why babies are called little bundles of joy. Your mind and your body are meant to be in a state of harmony. Your natural state is a state of happiness and joy. That's not unique to any one individual. That's universal. That's a universal truth. That is the natural state of the universe too, but that's getting a little spiritual, so we can talk about that at a different time. But that is your natural state of being. Anxiety is something that arises. And I think the key thing to really cure anxiety and to get away from anxiety is to realize that it's not an effect on it. It's not a cause on its own. It's an effect. Anxiety is a side effect of other things not working in your mind and body. And so anxiety doesn't arise spontaneously. It feels like that. It feels like anxiety arises spontaneously and that's your experience, but anxiety is always a result of, even if on an unconscious level, this doesn't mean it's your fault, but negative thoughts multiplied for a very long time and negative actions, and then sometimes mixed in there the experience of trauma, the experience of going through something really painful where your body began to feel like it was constantly living in that state and refusing to leave a state of fight or flight, and thereby leading to an even more negative mind, and then your nervous system and brain are out of whack. However, it may take a little time. You can heal. You can heal from anxiety. All you have to do is get your brain and nervous system together. We have all these fancy terms for people who struggle with mental health that really isolate them. We say things like, oh, they're schizophrenic, they're a sociopath, a psychopath, or, in less extreme cases, they have really bad anxiety or bad depression. We use this and it kind of creates even more fear in people, more fear. All it is, every human being's natural state is health and well-being. All it is when your mind and your body work against you and not for you. But you have control. By relaxing, by not touching the anxiety, by thinking more positive thoughts out of a state of meditation, by learning to witness the anxiety and relax through it, by going about your day and, when the anxiety comes up, dropping the shoulders, dropping the chest, dropping the stomach, and just noticing the feeling, right? Because the thing is, when anxiety comes up, we give our power away to it by scratching that itch to touch it, right? When the anxiety comes up, we think, oh, okay, I got to do something. I got to take my medication, or I got to go get a meal or do something quick to make it go away. And that creates more anxiety. In the face of anxiety, if you relax, instead of touching it, instead of getting so involved with it, you will feel so much better. But that's hard at first, right? Because we want to scratch the itch. It's hard to sit with that feeling and you go, oh, this feels so horrible. But if you do, it is your ticket to freedom, and freedom very quickly. It only takes about a few weeks, if not more than that in extreme cases, a few weeks for your nervous system and your mind to totally reset, to rewire in a way where health and well-being begin to emerge again and anxiety is gone forever. Because remember, anxiety is curable. So whatever you're struggling with, be it depression, anxiety, this video covered mostly anxiety, or even other more extreme diagnoses, it's only your brain and your body. It's only your mind and your body working against you and not for you, and you can cure it. You can get out of it. And you need to learn to not get so involved with it, to not touch all that reactive energies within you, to step back, to witness it, to relax, and to continue to go about your life. I think the other thing too is we give our power away to anxiety by not going about our lives anymore, right? We feel anxious, so you're like, oh, I should get groceries, but I'm not going to. Like, no. Confront the anxiety and say, hey, I'm not going to fight with you, but you're not the boss of me. I'm going to go get groceries, or, oh, I'm feeling like a kind of panic attack coming. I'm not going to see my friends. No. Take a few breaths, relax the body, teach your mind and body that you are in charge of your life, that life can and will be beautiful for you. All right. I heard a beautiful quote from a yogi mystic who said, the mind is a mechanism which can create absolute misery or pure joy. And it is within our control. That doesn't mean it's your fault if you're finding yourself in a state of misery or anxiety, but through the right techniques, through meditation, through breath work, through eating the right diet, through regular exercise, you can rewire it. You can. There's many practices out there. If you look online, you look at anxiety practice, there's a bajillion practices. My favorite's meditation and breath work and cold showers, but there's a bajillion. Whichever tool you use is the best tool. The key is to have that thought in the back of your mind that this can and will go away. I just need to give my mind and body time to reset back to its natural state. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I can talk more in depth about different tools and techniques. However, just that general understanding of what anxiety is, the fact that it is curable, is the first step. If you are listening to this too, if you really are struggling tremendously with anxiety, I highly, highly recommend the teachers. Michael Singer, he has a bajillion free lectures on YouTube. He wrote the best-selling Untethered Soul. His teachings are absolutely transformative. They're so simple and so easy to apply. Then also another guy on YouTube who makes videos as well, named Shaan. Shaan, I believe it's spelled with 2 A's. I'll leave it down in the description below. Shaan. He works especially with that type of physiological anxiety where the nerves are oversensitized, and has a free ebook on his YouTube channel that changed my life about how to remove anxiety, how to release it for good. He does amazing work with so many people, and he just also helps you realize that